All right, so today we're going to deep dive into something a little bit different, the subtle science of attraction. We're going to be dissecting this video. It's called 7 Signs She's Sexually Attracted to You. But before anyone gets any ideas, this isn't just about like dating advice or anything like that. Whether you're interested in romance or friendship, or just honestly, just becoming a better communicator, understanding these signs can totally like up your game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like we're constantly sending out these signals like all the time, even when we don't know it. So I think today we're going to try to like help you become fluent in that language.
Yeah, exactly. And lucky for us, we have an expert guide here
Oh, stop it.
who literally wrote the book on nonverbal communication.
Well, not literally, but I have spent many years studying how humans connect. And trust me, attraction is so much more than like good looks and cheesy pickup lines.
Okay, so this video, like right out of the gate, goes into some pretty specific signs. Like, have you ever noticed someone staring at your lips? I mean, obviously we all look at lips when someone's talking, but this is different. It's like they can't tear their eyes away. Is that like a real thing?
Oh, yeah, totally. And, you know, it's not just about wanting to kiss you or anything like that. Lips are just super expressive, even when we aren't talking. You know, like, think about it. They blush, they swell up, they pout. So, like, subconsciously, they actually signal a lot about our emotions, and especially desire.
Oh, so it's not just my imagination then.
Wow.
When I feel like someone's looking at my lips for a little too long, there's actual science behind that.
Oh, yeah, tons of science. Like, when we're attracted to someone, our pupils dilate, blood flow increases, and, yeah, we just tend to focus on the features that we like.
That's so interesting. The video also talks about this thing about proximity, like how someone who's attracted to you will always find excuses to get closer to you, even if it's just like a quick brush of the arm or something.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. So, like, our brains have this alarm system. It's called the amygdala, and it's constantly looking out for threats. And you know, personal space is a big one. But when we're attracted to someone, it's like that alarm gets overridden by the sense of safety and reward. So being close to them actually feels good. And that's why we subconsciously seek out those moments.
Okay, so it's not just that rom-com cliche of bumping into someone. Our brains are actually wired to want to be close to people we like.
Exactly. And about those quote-unquote accidental touches. Well, sometimes they are accidents, but a lot of times it's a way of just testing the waters, seeing how you respond to that contact.
So let's say I find myself leaning in, or like lingering a little closer. Should I read into that?
It's definitely something to watch out for. But you know, context is key. You have to look at their overall behavior and their cultural background, and the specific situation, obviously. A hug at a party means something different than a touch at a coffee shop.
Right. That makes sense. So it's not about one isolated behavior. It's more like the big picture. Now, the video also mentions this thing about digital flirting, which is interesting because, you know, these days everyone's online. So like, how much can we actually tell from someone's likes and comments and stuff?
Well, there's been a ton of research on this, actually. Like, did you know that studies have shown a huge connection between response time and attraction?
No, I did not.
So, like, the faster someone replies to you, the more likely they are to be into you.
Wow, so even in the digital world, our subconscious is giving us away. But how can we tell the difference between just like being friendly and actual flirting?
That's a great question. And it's where things can get a little tricky. One study I read said that people who are attracted to someone, they tend to use more emojis, especially the playful or suggestive ones. And they also tend to mirror the other person's language, like using the same slang or abbreviations.
So it's not just what they say, it's how they say it.
Exactly. It's about those little cues that show a desire to connect.
Man, this is already blowing my mind. I can't believe there's so much science to this. I thought attraction was just like a feeling, you know? But before we go too deep into the digital stuff, I want to come back to something you mentioned before, body language. This video goes on and on about this, talking about everything from leaning in to mirroring your gestures. Can you break down like the basics? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. Body language is fascinating because a lot of it is subconscious. So even when someone is trying to play it cool, their body could be telling a totally different story.
So even if they have like a poker face, their body language is like giving me all the tells.
Exactly. Think of it like this. When we're attracted to someone, our bodies literally want to be closer to them, both physically and emotionally. And our body language reflects that. We lean in, we tilt our head, we even mirror their movements to try to create a connection.
It's like our bodies are trying to close the gap before we even realize it.
Yeah.
So what are some of those like common body language cues that tell us someone's into us? And how can we tell the difference between just being a good listener and genuine interest?
Well, one of the biggest ones is eye contact. When someone is attracted to you, they'll hold your gaze longer. You might notice their pupils dilating, which is like a physiological response to arousal. But you have to be careful because prolonged eye contact can also mean aggression or dominance. So again, context is everything.
Okay, so eye contact is important, but it's not always a sure thing. What about other body language signals? What else should we be looking out for?
Another common one is mirroring. When we like someone, we often copy their posture and their gestures, even their tone of voice. It's a way of building rapport and showing that you're on the same wavelength.
So if I see someone like subtly copying my movements, that's a
That's
sign.
taboo. But again, some people are just naturally more empathetic, so they mirror everyone regardless of whether they're attracted to them or not.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're learning a whole new language. But before we go too deep down this rabbit hole, I want to go back to something you said before, this idea of effort. The video mentions that someone who is attracted to you will make time for you, even if they're super busy. Is that always true?
It's a good indicator, but it's not a guarantee. Some people are just naturally more generous with their time. But if someone is constantly making an effort to see you, even when they're busy, yeah, it's worth paying attention to, especially if it's combined with those other signs we were talking about.
So it's about looking for those patterns, those little things that add up to something more.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be talking about in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into the world of attraction. Before the break, we were talking about all this stuff about body language and how it can totally give us away, even when we're trying to be all cool and collected.
Right, like our bodies just have a mind of their own sometimes.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things people do on purpose. The video we're talking about today specifically mentions compliments. But it's not just about saying nice things, is it? It's like there's a whole art to giving compliments that actually mean something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anyone can say like, oh, you look nice today or whatever. But a real compliment, a good compliment, it shows that you're paying attention to the little things you know. It shows that you actually care about who they are as a person.
So instead of complimenting like someone's outfit or their hair, you might compliment their sense of humor or their creativity or something like that.
Right, exactly. Like those compliments, they just hit different. They make people feel seen and appreciated.
I totally get that. It's like that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when someone notices something special about you, something maybe you didn't even notice about yourself.
Right.
And the source also talks about this thing about shared experiences. It says that couples who do new and exciting things together, they tend to have stronger bonds.
That makes a lot of sense. Think about it when we share these experiences with someone. Our brains release dopamine, which is that chemical that makes us feel happy and excited. So we start to connect those good feelings with that person.
So it's not just about like spending time together. It's about the quality of that time. Like going on an adventure together would be better than just watching TV.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be some crazy adventure, though. Even trying a new restaurant or taking a different route on your walk, those little things can shake things up and give you that dopamine boost.
I love that. It's like a reminder to get out of our comfort zones and do something fun together.
Yeah.
And speaking of fun, we can't forget about flirting. The video talks about different flirting styles.
Yeah.
From like subtle teasing to more obvious come-ons. What do you think about flirting? Like what role does it play in attraction?
Oh, flirting is fascinating. It's like this delicate dance, you know? You push a little, you pull a little, you test the boundaries, you create some tension. When it's done right, it can be incredibly seductive. But it's so important to be respectful. You always want to make sure the other person is comfortable. Flirting should be fun and playful, not aggressive or anything like that.
Right. It should feel good for both people.
Yeah.
It's about creating a spark, not making someone feel pressured or anything. And the video also talks about how someone who's interested in you, they might like prioritize you in group settings. Like they'll pay more attention to what you're saying or try to include you in the conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When we like someone, our attention just naturally goes to them.
It's like they have a radar or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I notice that someone's always seeking me out in a crowd or making an effort to include me in the conversation,
Yeah.
that's a good sign, right?
Yeah, definitely. And remember, it's not always about the big, obvious things.
Sometimes it's those subtle little things that really give it away.
Not like making eye contact across the room or leaning in when you're talking.
It's like they're sending you a secret signal. And speaking of secret signals, I'm curious about your take on digital communication. We talked before about how quickly someone replies to your messages. But what about things like emojis and GIFs and the stuff they actually say? Can those things give us clues about their level of interest?
Totally. Like, even when we try to play it cool online, our digital footprint can reveal a lot. For example, someone who's interested might send more personalized messages. They might reference an inside joke or something you talked about before. They might use flirty language or compliment you on something you posted.
So it's not just about the quantity of the communication. It's about the quality.
Exactly. It's about those little details that show they're paying attention and actually care about connecting with you.
Right. And on the other hand, if someone's always sending like short, generic replies.
Or if they take forever to respond,
Yeah.
that might be a sign they're not that interested.
This is all so helpful. It feels like we're finally starting to understand all the hidden messages people are sending. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier, this thing about context being key. Can you give us some examples of how context can change the meaning of these signs?
Sure. Let's take touch, for example. A touch on the arm could mean different things depending on the situation. If you're at a crowded concert and someone touches your arm to get your attention, that's probably just a friendly gesture. But if you're having a deep conversation at a coffee shop and someone touches your arm while looking into your eyes...
Ooh, that's different.
Right, it could definitely be a sign of romantic interest.
So it's not just about the behavior itself, it's about the whole picture.
Exactly. You have to take everything into account. The setting, the relationship, the cultural background. It's like putting together a puzzle,
That's a great analogy. It's a good reminder that this isn't about following a bunch of rules. It's about being aware of those little nuances and using our intuition. Wow. This has been so eye-opening. We've learned so much about the language of attraction and the psychology behind it, and most importantly, the importance of being respectful. But there's one more thing we haven't talked about yet.
What's that?
Respect.
Yes, of course.
Understanding these signs of attraction is powerful, but we have to use that knowledge responsibly.
Absolutely. It's not about manipulating people or taking advantage of them.
It's about building healthy relationships based on mutual respect and understanding.
Right. And in the final part of our deep dive, that's exactly what we'll be talking about.
We'll explore how to navigate this whole world of attraction with sensitivity and integrity. Welcome back to the deep dive. For this last part of our deep dive, we've been talking about all these subtle signs of attraction and the psychology behind it all. But now I kind of want to know, okay, what happens when you think you're picking up on those signals? What do? What's the right way to move forward?
That's a great question. And I think it's where a lot of people get tripped up. It's easy to get caught up in overanalyzing everything, like every little glance, every text, every emoji.
Right.
But we have to remember that attraction is a two-way street. It's not just about trying to figure out what the other person is thinking or feeling. It's also about being honest with yourself about your own feelings and intentions.
Okay, so before we even start trying to read someone else, we need to do a little self-reflection.
Exactly. Ask yourself, am I actually interested in this person? What kind of connection am I hoping for? And maybe most importantly, am I being respectful of their boundaries?
Well, that's a good segue, because that's what I really wanted to focus on in this final part of our conversation. We've learned so much about decoding these signs of attraction, but it's so important to use that knowledge responsibly, right?
Absolutely. Just because you think someone might be into you, that doesn't give you a free pass to cross their boundaries or make them feel uncomfortable. Consent and respect are so crucial in any interaction.
Totally. So let's say you're pretty sure someone's sending you those signals. What's the best way to approach the situation?
I think the most important thing is to be respectful of their space and their pace. You don't want to overwhelm them with attention or come on too strong. Even if they are attracted to you, they might not be ready to do anything about it yet.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between showing interest and giving them the space to make their own choices.
Exactly. And I think the best way to do that is through open and honest communication. Instead of playing games or trying to read their mind, just tell them how you feel.
Straight up.
Yeah. You could say something like, hey, I've been really enjoying our conversations lately. Would you want to grab coffee sometime?
I mean, that takes guts.
It does, but it's
Yeah.
way more effective than just hoping they'll pick up on your subtle hints. And it shows that you're confident and that you respect their time and their decision.
And what if they say no?
Then you accept their answer gracefully and move on. Not everyone you're attracted to is going to feel the same way, and that's okay.
Rejection is tough, but it's a part of life.
It is. And you never know, maybe things will change down the line. But for now, just respect their decision and focus on building connections with people who are excited to be around you.
This has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about attraction and relationships and communication.
Me too.
So before we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that attraction is a journey, not a destination. It's about enjoying the process of connecting with other people and learning to read those subtle signals and using that knowledge to build stronger and healthier relationships.
I love that. Attraction is a journey. And even though our deep dive is coming to an end, the exploration never really stops, right? So keep your eyes open, your ears open, and your heart open. You never know what amazing connections are waiting for you just around the corner. Thanks for listening, everybody.